Mr. President. Mr. President. Mr. President.
Why are you willing to cross his arm this time around?
Please, Mr. President.
Good morning, it is Thursday the 18th of June. I'm Maeve McMahon and this is Europe Today, bringing you all the news you need to start your day live here on Euronews. Coming up, NATO defence ministers are gathering in Brussels as we speak to scrutinise the US-Iran deal and prepare for the Leaders' Summit in Ankara. Among those attending is the Pentagon chief and US Secretary of War Pete Hegseth. We'll have all the details with our NATO correspondent, Shona Murray. Meanwhile, red carpet treatments for President Donald Trump at a gala dinner last night in Versailles. That after a successful G7 summit, attention now turns to Brussels, where leaders of the EU's 27 member states will gather tonight for a working dinner. Joined by Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky, on the menu, continued support for Ukraine, the constant conflict in the Middle East and the battle for the EU's 7-year budget. And after a whirlwind 6 months leading the EU's rotating presidency that was overshadowed by the conflict in Iran, Cyprus is getting ready to pass the baton to Ireland. We'll be joined here in the studio by the country's Minister for European Affairs to discuss the presidency's highs and lows and the work still left to be done. But first to NATO, where defence ministers are meeting this morning, with the US Secretary of War Pete Hegseth joining his counterparts. The tentative US-Iran deal ending several months of conflict is very much high on the agenda this morning. Euronews' Shona Murray is following those talks for us and joins us now from NATO. Good morning, Shona. So a packed agenda in Brussels today. First, just bring us up to speed on what defence ministers there are saying at NATO with various press conferences underway.
Good morning, Maeve. And Pete Hegseth, the US Secretary of War, has gone inside. He didn't speak to the press, but we did hear from Mark Rutte, the NATO Secretary General, who confirmed to us that US cuts in contributions to NATO will be effective immediately. So essentially, the United States is saying it will no longer supply certain assets to NATO in the event of war, including things like certain F-16s, F-35s, certain bombers, submarines. And Mark Rutte making the point this morning that European and Canadian allies will have to fill that gap immediately. Also on the agenda, of course, is that Iran deal that the United States signed last night in Versailles and the implications that will have for NATO allies. Now, remember, NATO is not taking part in this war and is not taking part in the reopening formally of the Strait of Hormuz, but NATO countries led by France and the UK have signed up to a mission that will reopen and resecure the Strait of Hormuz within the coming days and weeks. So the implications will be significant there. But also on the agenda is a major talking point in relation to Ukraine. And Volodymyr Zelensky, the Ukrainian president, will be here. There is a hope from the Ukrainian perspective that there can be a refocus back into the war in Ukraine, given that hopefully the Iran deal could materialise and bring that conflict to an end. Maeve?
And meanwhile, of course, Shona, this evening, EU leaders will be meeting with China, the Middle East and the EU budget, very much top of the agenda.
That's right. And we know that budget discussions in the European Union are confrontational and rancorous at the best of times. And the beginning of these negotiations is no different. That budget needs to be sealed and done by the end of 2027. So that will be very much on the topic for discussion today. Also, there's a growing consensus within the European Union that the EU needs to be stronger when it comes to dealing with trade measures from China, in particular in relation to overcapacity that is really impacting the European markets and the European economy, also in relation to Chinese subsidies. And there will also be discussion on the Middle East and the decision whether or not to deal with occupied territories in Palestine. So there's a 2-day summit beginning this evening and ongoing tomorrow. Maeve?
OK, Shona Murray, thank you so much for that live update there from NATO. And as you heard there from Shona, another key issue at that summit tonight is, of course, Ukraine, with President Zelensky joining leaders after having lunch with the Belgian King. for the view from Cyprus, who's held the EU rotating presidency for the past 6 months. I'm joined now here in the studio by Minister Mariana Rauna, Deputy Minister for European Affairs for Cyprus. Good morning, Minister.
Good morning, Maeve.
Good to have you here.
To be here 12 days before the end of our presidency.
I know, it's been quite a busy period for you, so we're thrilled that you made it here to Europe today. And of course, on the 15th of June there, you did manage to open the first accession negotiations cluster, the first step, so to these talks that can kick off for the Ukraine to one day potentially enter the EU. Do you hope, though, to open the next cluster before you end the presidency?
Indeed, we had this milestone step in the accession negotiations of Ukraine as well as Moldova this week, the second accession conference, opening cluster 1. We worked extremely hard to get to this day. We made it very clear from the beginning that supporting Ukraine on all fronts was a top priority of the Cyprus presidency. We were led to this milestone step after having done all the front-loading work, all the technical work on all the clusters. We completed them. We presented those results at the General Affairs Council in March.
So do you want to open another one? So only 2 weeks to do it?
We will remain ambitious until the very last day of our presidency, and we will work with all member states and make all efforts to have even more positive developments. That I can say.
But not overpromising something that perhaps you cannot deliver.
I cannot prejudge, but what I can say is that we are working on it and we will continue working on it. There is momentum that has been created by this accession conference, and we want to continue building on that.
And your country is unique in the sense that you're the only EU country with a portion of its territory under occupation. How has that influenced your decisions when it comes to Ukraine?
It has given us a very unique perspective, Maeve. Cyprus is the last member state under military occupation that has experienced the devastating effects of the Turkish invasion that are enduring. This has given us a unique perspective into what is happening in Ukraine. And it has really driven our commitment and our work forward. We delivered on the Ukraine support loan, the 90 billion loan. We delivered on the 20th sanctions package, and we're already working on the 21st sanctions package.
And let's move on to the long-term
budget
conference, because everyone in town is talking about this long-term budget. Of course, it'll be up to the Irish presidency to really push it through. As you heard there from our correspondent Shona Murray, the stakes couldn't be higher. Now, you've proposed a 2% cut to the budget. Why?
So this was one of our most demanding files, our most challenging files, and that made us work extra hard with transparency, with inclusivity since day one of our presidency. On the volume of and we've put on the table the first revised negotiating box that actually has figures. And in addition to that, we delivered an agreement on the 3 important sectoral files.
This is the so-called nego box. But nobody likes this box.
Nego box.
The Dutch have called it the no-go box.
No one likes the first nego box with figures. We were well prepared with that. We are, however, confident, having worked intensively with all member states, that we worked as true honest brokers, and that in this nego box, which is a basis for negotiation, it is not the end of the road. There is something for every member state. We proposed a moderate 2% cut, bringing together as a compromise. And there were very opposing views on that. On some member states who wanted an ambitious budget, some member states wanted an even increased budget, and those member states who wanted extensive cuts.
So the pressure will be on the Irish presidency now, with so many elections taking place next year. But just you mentioned you're a small country, you're a so-called honest broker. Just on that point, you spoke last night to Bruno Le Maire, the former economy minister of France, and he had some suggestions on how the EU could work a bit better. Take a look.
All the European leaders must draw from the past month, and I would say from the past 2 years, is that if they want to be relevant and strong, they need to be united. And they don't need to be united with the 27 member states. They need to give a new impetus to the European construction by building a European with 6 core countries: France, Germany, Italy, Spain, Poland, and the Netherlands. 6 countries instead of 27 countries is the best way of reinforcing Europe, of facing the threat posed by many empires around the world, and to get some concrete results.
Your reaction to that, Minister, how does that make small countries feel?
I would say that the European Union is a union of 27 equal member states, bigger and smaller. Are decisions difficult to reach when you have 27 around the table? Absolutely. But unity is the greatest asset of the European Union, and particularly now when we see the complexities and the multitude of challenges that we face. But we have also proven something in the last 2 years. In the midst of truly unprecedented challenges that we have faced, the European Union was able to deliver on all fronts.
And of course,
unanimity has not been difficult, but we have always found a way, and we need to maintain our unity.
OK, and your presidency, of course, slightly overshadowed there by the US-Iran war. Minister, thank you so much for
I wouldn't
coming
say
into
overshadowed.
Thank you so much for coming into us. And just on that point of the US-Iran war, Pope Leo has welcomed the initial agreement that was electronically signed last night and is set to be officially sealed tomorrow in Lausanne, Switzerland. Lebanon, though, remains outside the scope of the deal. For more, we can bring in now General Ben Hodges, who's served as the Commanding General of the US Army Europe. Good morning, General. Always great to have you with us on the programme. Curious to hear your thoughts on this deal. Is anyone in Washington satisfied with it?
Well, I think the president probably is, because it gives him some reason to claim what he has done and to hopefully put it in the rearview mirror, which were his words. I don't think anybody else believes that this is a good deal or sustainable or one that's going to last.
NATO defence ministers, they're breathing a slight sigh of relief, as our correspondent reported just earlier. What's the biggest red flag, though, in the draft that you have seen?
Well, you just touched on it. Lebanon is left outside of it. And, the Israeli objectives for this war have not always been aligned with the U.S. objectives for the war. And the Iranians can see that. And so the fact that Israel and Lebanon are not in the deal means that the potential for Israel and the Hezbollah to resume fighting is really high. I think that's one thing. The second thing, the Iranians will always be able to stop traffic through the strait. Again, they've discovered that they have their own nuclear weapon, and there's not much we can do about it. So we're in a much worse situation now than we were 4 or 5 months ago.
And what if this collapses then? What's next?
Well, the president said if the Iranians don't behave, then he'll resume bombing. I think this is, he said that to threaten the Iranians, but of course he will not want to do that right in the last 5 months before the midterm election. So the Iranians actually are the ones that have so much leverage right now. The U.S. Navy has done a great job carrying out their assigned tasks. They could come back in and put the blockade back in, I guess. But this is exactly the thing that candidate Trump said he would not do. And now here we are. It's a mess of his own making. And our allies are correct to be cautious about getting sucked into this. But I would imagine there is some relief, at least temporarily, because people are concerned about the NATO summit coming up in just a few weeks, and they're hoping that the president doesn't blow that up.
Indeed, Ben Hodges, temporary relief. I think that's a good way of putting it. Thank you so much for joining us here on the programme. And now for a deeper dive on what's happening tonight at the last EU summit before the summer break, here's our Jakob Yanis.
Forget the dry press releases. The real action at this week's European Council summit happens behind closed doors on this Thursday night. Council President Antonio Costa is gathering all 27 national leaders for an exclusive, high-stakes working dinner. Sadly, he forgot to invite a reporter. But that doesn't stop us from seeing what will be served on the multi-course menu. So let's pull up a chair and look at the dishes driving the debate. First is Ukraine. Leaders will hear from President Volodymyr Zelensky before discussing a major diplomatic milestone, opening the first formal block of EU membership negotiations for both Ukraine and Moldova. Next is global economic survival. EU leaders are confronting unfair competition from China, aiming to build a unified European stance against Beijing state subsidies and to stop losing out on trade before European factories are forced to close. Finally, there will be a bitter row over the next 7-year budget. Costa has delivered a blunt ultimatum. There will be no deal this year without new EU-wide taxes. And Brussels wants to raise billions through green duties, but also through fresh levies on big tech, crypto and online gambling. And the Cypriot presidency has pitched a compromise budget of 1.73 trillion euros. But the fiscal frugals like Germany or Sweden argue the total sum is still far too high. And there is a lot of political pressure to digest before dessert, especially as crushing energy bills from the war in Iran still hang over the table. Look, the official summit conclusions on Friday will no doubt look polished and uniform. However, the real messy fate of the European economy is being carved up across Thursday's dinner plates. And if history is any guide, expect the coffee to be strong, the knives to be out, and the negotiations to stretch long after the tables are cleared.
Jakob Yanis reporting for us there. And now it's time for our FIFA World Cup update. Well, last night was another gripping one, with Portugal facing off Congo in a 1-1 draw in Group K. England beating Croatia 4-2 and Ghana winning Panama in Group L. And then we saw, of course, Uzbekistan losing 1-3 to Colombia in Group K. For the view from Portugal on their very first game of this tournament, we can cross now over to Lisbon and bring in our correspondent João Azevedo. Good morning, João. So tell us, in your view, how did Portugal do and how would you assess Ronaldo's performance?
Good morning, Maeve. Well, it was, given the hype around this Portuguese squad, which is seen by many analysts as the most complete ever, it was a major letdown for the thousands of fans who flocked to this square here in downtown Lisbon. Well, Portugal got off to a great start, with João Neves rising for a spectacular header that put the team ahead just 6 minutes into the game. But then the Democratic Republic of the Congo pushed through. They're strong physically and managed to equalize before halftime with their first ever World Cup goal. Cristiano Ronaldo, well, he was nowhere to be seen in the first 45 minutes, and when he came back out for the second half, he missed two clear-cut chances. He's now gone 10 games in a row without scoring a single goal at European Championships and World Cups, and the debate is over whether he should be dropped for the next game against Uzbekistan on Tuesday. He certainly confirmed the worrying signs that he had shown in the two warm-up matches prior to the team traveling over to the U.S. Also yesterday, England was in action. They beat Croatia 4-2 with the country's star striker Harry Kane delivering two goals that were crucial to the team starting the tournament successfully. First from a retaken penalty, and then then with a header from a corner. He was unsurprisingly named man of the match, and I think maybe that you got a clip showing the excitement of English fans, right?
Absolutely. We sent our Adnan Lial to the streets of Brussels to hear some very excited England supporters. Take a look.
This time we hope it's going to come home, obviously. Every time we do.
It is coming home.
Harry Kane, the big man, I think he's in the form of his life, so I think if there's a time to do it, it's now. Harry Kane will bring it home for England.
Of course he will, of course he will. You'll see, sir.
After that performance, yeah, go on then. It's coming home.
Yes.
Most definitely. Like, the game tonight was insane.
Of course I think it's coming home. It has to come home. It's been since 1966.
It's going to be immense if we win it. Like, the whole of England's going to be celebrating.
4 goals, 3 words. It's coming home. Go on, England!
You can always rely on the English there for some entertainment. That was, of course, Adnan Lial reporting for us. And João, just tell us now, by now all the big global stars have already played in this year's World Cup. What's your overview on the superstars? How are they doing?
Well, first of all, Lionel Messi, 2 days ago, he took the World Cup by storm, scored the hat-trick against Algeria, and became the oldest man to score a World Cup hat-trick. And he also secured the all-time World Cup scoring record, 16 goals, drew level with Germany's Miroslav Klose. So Lionel Messi, also France's Kylian Mbappé, Norway's Erling Erling Haaland. England's Harry Kane, as we just saw, all four star forwards delivered important goals, and they played a key role in their team's opening wins. Cristiano Ronaldo and other big names, notably from Spain and Brazil, fell short. But you know what? World Cups are full of slow starts. This is just the beginning. We'll see how they respond in the next two group stage games. On a personal level, I hope Portugal can perform much better, and we'll be back, I believe.
OK, Joao Azevedo, thank you so much for that live update there. And for more, of course, on the World Cup, visit euronews.com. We'll also have a live blog on the EU Summit taking place tonight. Take care, though, and thank you so much for tuning in to Europe Today on Euronews.
Flagship projects boasting regions across Europe. Learn how initiatives are improving lives and hear from the people who are part of the change. See how reducing regional disparities brings real benefits to communities across the EU. Visit the regions where EU projects have tangible impacts on people's lives. With Smart Regions on Euronews and euronews.com.
You're watching Euronews' fact-checking show, The Cube. Take a look at this video from social media. The woman on screen may just seem like your typical